We're extra powerfully imperfect today. You can see because I don't even know what I'm doing on this. We have lost our great switchboard operator, is down sick. So you'll have to put up with me powerfully and perfectly running this call, which is all ironically enough about space. And I'm not sure I know how to give us any on this screen. But listen, making space, violating space, keeping healthy boundaries is an absolute important part of any relationship, including yours. And figuring that out is going to be paramount to you having a great relationship. Can't wait to talk about it on the other side of this.
All right, so I had a major meltdown today about space. And what I've created in my life is not creating space for me. And I feel like everybody lives on top of me. And it's something that I've chosen. I have a desk in literally on the side of my kitchen,
So
and it's
hold on. Let's just break this down. I'm going to put you the big screen. Hold on. Let's just break this down because I'm still a little spicy about this. If I'm honest, like I'm still a little like annoyed, hurt. For months I've been saying. So the doorway that you see to on the screen, Whitney's left, is the way in that all of our kids use, even though there is technically another one. To her right is the kitchen. Behind her is the living room and the den, and straight behind her, where you see the stairway up, is the only way for the kids to get to their room. Also behind that wall is the front door. So literally the entire first floor is covered and locked down. So especially if we do a call or whatever, Whitney is in. It is not possible to be in a more public place. I guess you could be stitched to all of us, personally, just to accentuate. I don't mean to cut you off. I'm just a little spicy about this. So this is definitely a topic we need right now, hopefully to inspire someone else.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I have created this. I am the creator of my life, right? And I created this space, and it's created in the busiest place of our house. And yet I am getting super aggravated when I don't have the space, because everybody feels the need when they come into the kitchen to talk to mom, because mom is sitting there, including my husband, who comes down from his office, which is upstairs, and feels the need to talk to me. And there's a piece of me that really loves that, and then there's a piece of me that's just like, really, I'm in the middle of doing work. Could you go and be somewhere else?
Yeah, I think like for me, we have very different feelings about this. Like I don't have any problem with this. I will say that I've always said I'll never work at home. I always need an office. I want to be out. We built the studio here, and I really love it. I've been enjoying being here. But there is something to the separation, like going off to work all day, coming home, and then you have shit to talk about that didn't happen together. Like right now, there's no way for me to go down and grab lunch or go down and have a snack or get water or whatever it is that I want to do without being right on top of it. Of course, the woman that I'm in love with and that I'm wild about is sitting in a room. I'm not going to not acknowledge her or talk to her. Like that's not going to happen, right? So that's an important thing for me. So creating the space though allows us to have a happy, not happy marriage for a long time in our relationship, right? I don't know how to turn that noise off, but we should. For a long time in our relationship, I would go to Texas every other weekend, right? So I would be taking this long weekend trip. So it kind of created some space, like 2 or 3 days away. I was with the kids over there. Whitney was home. It created this kind of natural set of space for us where we could kind of inhale, exhale, right? Like in life, if we inhale only, we're not going to last very long. If we exhale only, we're not going to last very long. And I think most couples need some balance of that. I will say that other people are more or less comfortable with different amounts. Like for me, I need very little exhale from Whitney. I could just kind of like sit next to her. She could sit in my lap all day, and I'd probably be fine with that. I'd figure it out, right?
I don't
For
even think
Whit,
it's
it's
that.
different.
I don't even think it's that if I sat next to you. I think if somehow I could ride along in Kevin's pocket, he would be totally happy with the fact that I was there all of the time. And I think what has happened for me is it's like I'm building up some resentments against you, over choices that I've made. And also resentments, about our children, because they're interrupting all the time over choices that I've made. And then it's like, I'm like, okay, well, then I have this guilt that comes over me that you would be happy if I sat next to you or rode along in your pocket, and that's not really something that I want. And so it's like sometimes I don't know how to verbalize that without hurting your feelings and having all of the guilt kind of creep up inside of me that, well, because he wants that, then I should want that. And here I go shitting all over myself.
Yeah, I don't think so. That's interesting. I don't think that you should feel how I feel, but I also don't think there's anything wrong with how I feel. There's nothing broken inside of me. Here's what's happened is because I used to go to an office when the kids went to school, you used to have private time. Like you could do whatever you wanted. You could be quiet, you could whatever. Now there's no private time. I don't like that either. I'm ready. When we did this thing, I thought, oh, this would be cool, super efficient. I think a lot of people have fallen into situations like this because of COVID, because of everything else, right? And it just kind of happened. I was like, oh, this is so much more convenient. But then I didn't really realize that that would put us kind of literally, like in this moment, on top of one another. Literally, my feet are above her head in this moment, right? And I think we're dealing with some of that. A lot of us dealt with it during COVID. That was a little bit easier, I think, for us. We kept going with our business. We still had offices. We still did events. So I think we're noticing it more now. But I think that space is important. I think that if you don't have a way to go somewhere else without your spouse from time to time, you're going to have a hard time in a marriage. You're going to not really last in a marriage. That being said, I never really innately want it. I don't ever really think like, oh, let me go. I have always thought it's kind of bullshit. Like, oh, guys' night out, girls' night out. Like once you're married and you have kids, especially, like, I mean, how much space do you really have for that? Now, from time to time, I think it's fine. But I just my default, and I really don't even think I'm right about this. And I think we talk a lot about this, getting out of right and wrong and what works and doesn't work for our family. And I think in terms of space, that's important. But to me, it's like, I don't know. I mean, when we first got married, but you were disappointed I didn't have hunting buddies or guys to go out with. I don't know if you remember that.
Well, in a previous relationship, I felt like there was too much space, and then Kevin and I get together, and I loved it. I still love aspects of it, but I almost felt like I was drowning in the attention that I was getting. And I did. I was like, hey, could you just maybe go hunting? I mean, we're from South Louisiana. Could you just maybe go hunting one day, or maybe fishing one day? And I do remember you saying, well, that's not who I am. And we have created that in different ways. It's not hunting and fishing, but we've fallen back into, now we work out of our home. And I want to I really want to be with you 24/7. And I think, like, even as early as last week, I was like, no, 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 this is working, because I think I was trying to convince myself that
We
this was
we
working.
literally got in a fight because I said I need to get in office. I think it would work better. We literally like got in kind of a fight about that, and then today it's an explosion about how I don't have any space. Everybody's on top of me, and so the reason we're sharing this, guys, I think it's not uncommon. It's very confusing to me, right? As the person who's trying to support Whitney, last week was no way. Don't go get an office. This is working, and then a week later, it's a total like explosion about how I don't have any space. This isn't working. Right. And I've said this is a months long conversation, right? Like a months long conversation of, hey, I couldn't work where you work, like where you chose to put your desk. There is no way I could get anything done there because this. But I feel like you haven't listened and now you're reaping the fruit. And it's a really weird thing because I want to support you and I want to help you. But then there's a part of me, honestly, that's just kind of like, yeah, well, this is what happens. Like this is what
Well,
you get like, for months.
and I think there's also a piece of me that is like, I don't want you to fix it. I don't want you to tell me that it's not working. I already know it's not working, but then I want to prove something to you about how it actually is working, because it does work when I'm not interrupted, right? And I like this area because on a sunny day the sun's shining in my face, but that hasn't been happening the past week because I feel like Texas is killing us with our weather. And so it's like compounding of I don't want you to be right, which I know this is where we get caught up in our relationships of right and wrong. I don't want you to fix it, and I just want space. And again, I am preaching to myself right now as I went through our spark. It's our way to tell ourselves the different stories that are, or process the different stories that are happening in our own heads. And I journaled about it and I meditated about it this morning. And I had the blow up with you about it is, you know, I created this and I can also create something different. But there's something inside of me, there's something that lives inside of me. And I think inside of a lot of people that maybe if I just give this one more day, it'll work.
Yeah, but here's my thing, right? Is you're not going to be able to fix this and be right and tell me to help you and back off. Because I'm getting to this weird point, and I think a lot of men get to this point. This is not an unusual situation. We're very problem solving oriented, right? And then I think women are very, community building, and then we solve problems with the community. But as your community, who feels like he's been trying to help with this for months, I'm getting to the point of like, well, have fun. See ya. I'm just gonna go. You want me away? Awesome. I'll be at a coffee shop all day. You have a problem? Don't call because apparently I'm in your way. Like that. And that's me trying to be right. Like that's me going the other way. But I'm trying to give a feeling for you guys of what's really happening in my head. Is it's like, man, for 3 months we have been talking about this. I was texting. We could convert another room to another studio that's just for her. I already started to do that without any permission. I got in trouble for that. Like there's all these things that happen. So it's like we can't, you're not going to be able to, because I think what you really want, you can tell me, pound saying that's stupid, is you want to have it the way you want it, despite any reality, and to be right about it, and for everyone to like it, and for everyone to magically know when you want them to come and interrupt you. Because there's other times when I don't interrupt you, I'm just like silently leave. You're like, oh, wait, where'd you go? What happened? It's like, really? I can't win, right? But I mean, you tell me. That's probably not exactly right. But I mean, what?
No, I think okay. It to be honest is sometimes I don't know what I want, and I think that that's okay too. And then there are moments where I like the hustle and bustle. I like the being interrupted. And then there's those moments where it's like head down, I'm into work and I don't want to be disturbed. And I just, again, it's me creating a space that then I can still have this area. I don't have to go and totally seclude myself because I definitely don't want to be secluded from you or my family. And also I think, it's time for me to create a space that's just mine. So when I'm there, there's no question because I know that I'm giving off all these like confusing vibes because I know there have been moments where you have been quiet or you do go upstairs and you don't say anything as you walk upstairs and that's not normal. So then I'm like, oh man, I'm in trouble because of whatever I've created.
As if I'm your daddy, right? Like as if you're in trouble, bad girl. But I mean, we all have these feelings, right? Like, here's the thing. Here's what it sounds like you're saying. I want to be alone, and I want some quiet. Except for I don't want that, and I always want the option for you to be here, and I want you guys to know when I want what I want, right? So it's very confusing to me. Like to speak for, I'm going to say most of the men. It's not always men because it's a masculine energy thing, not necessarily a masculine person. But we get, man, that is maddening to me as a person who just wants results. Like, well, what result do you want? And like, let me, because I can give it to you either way. And I feel like we get in this loop, and a lot of couples. This again, we're exposing our personal problems. I think it's going to be useful to you. Please sound off. If you think I'm an asshole, if you think Whitney's crazy, whatever, like probably all of that's true, right? But we want to kind of parse through this to help you guys see, like maybe this is happening to you. I mean, how would I know how to act with? Like, how would I know that? The times you want me to be there or not, and the times you want space and not.
I don't know that you would unless I actually speak up, right? Unless I actually say, hey, from this time to this time, I don't want to be disturbed. And there's been moments where I walk up to your office just because it's like, okay, I need to regroup. I want attention, or I just want to give you a kiss or whatever it is. And then it's like, okay, as I'm going up there, even this morning, I'm like, he's going to think I've totally lost it. Like, because I don't want to be disturbed, but here I am walking up to him to get kissed and attention, right?
You literally threw me out of the bottom, like threw me to my office and then walked up to get a hug. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, what? I don't even know what to do. I was nervous to hug you because I'm like, well, apparently that's not what she wants. Because when I try to do that downstairs, but then you're like, no, I just want this. And it's okay. Here's the thing, right? I think that the solution to this for us, but for everybody, is getting out of right and wrong, understanding that we're irrational human beings, right? Like we are powerfully imperfect, right? That's the whole that's the whole name of the show. Is like we can be powerful and yet imperfect. We're not going to have all the answers all the time. In fact, trying to figure out who's wrong, who's right is going to be detrimental to our relationship all the time. Like right and wrong are not going to provide a path out. Right and wrong are going to provide a never-ending battle in a circle, round and round and round and round and round. And that just doesn't work. Like what we got to figure out is what works and what doesn't work for us in any given moment. And I think one of the things that we do have that's very different from most people is not only can we talk about this together, we can talk about this live on a podcast stream. And so we can actually parse through it and actually be honest with ourselves of when I'm being petty and irrational, right? Add to it that I have kind of abandonment issues from being young, right? So I have these kind of like weird feelings. I'm kind of, there's a little broken 7, 8-year-old, probably 12-year-old part of me that's always kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, that wit's going to either figure out I'm not good enough or leave. Or so when you add that, then I start getting really scared and cranking up in all sorts of different directions emotionally, right? So I don't know what's coming up for you, Ed.
Well, I mean, this has just been super helpful for me. I mean, there's the work that I do just for myself that, like, even that I felt like, and I said this in our conversation this morning, all of the things like journaling, meditating, sparking, all the things that I normally do to get me headed down the path that I want to head down, I felt like I wasn't getting there. And having this conversation, having had the conversation with you, and just letting the overwhelm come out of, I mean, it was one of those moments of, it's not just one thing, it's all the things that I was drowning in this morning. But I think it was helpful for me to just kind of spew it all out. And then but then I had this like moment of, well, nice, I just like gave that all to you, and now I'm expecting you to go on and carry on with your workday and not be affected by that. And I think it's important as couples, I think sometimes forget that the way our other person inside of our couple is feeling also affects how we're feeling. And for me to put all of that on you, was that fair this morning? I mean, to me, yes and no. I don't know what you think about that.
Well, I mean, we're together, right? Like, I mean, that's the thing. Like, where one of us goes, both of us go. And that's another important concept inside of couples is like, if I'm depressed, Whitney in some way is also depressed. If Whitney is jubilantly happy, then I, in some way, am jubilantly happy, whether I'm excited about that or not, right? Where one of us goes, we both go. But here's the thing that I mean, I don't think fair is really a question. I think fair is kind of almost a victim way to go about thinking about it. Like, it's, hey, what's fair in a relationship? Well, I mean, everything and nothing, right? Depends on how you see it. So was it fair? Yeah, that's where you were. Here's what there's a disconnect that I don't understand. Let me get you up on the screen here. There's a disconnect that I don't understand. It's for me, nothing about today. In fact, this morning is almost a relief because I'm like, okay, finally she's going to admit that this is a problem. But I'm not exaggerating to say, I think it was 3 months ago I sent you, hey, let's plan for you to have a private space. Like I can see what's happening. I'd love for you to have a place. Like I love the studio. I swore I'd never like to work at home. We built the studio. I love it. I can be in here all day. I'm working. I'm really effective. Like I really am enjoying it. And so I feel like for 3 months I've been saying and noticing and sending little articles and be like, hey, like the days are getting shorter. This is always the time that's an issue. Where you're sitting, I don't know that any rational human being could actually function there. But for 3 months, I feel like it's like ignored. And then all of a sudden today,
I don't know. I disagree with that. I don't think that it was ignored. I think it was, I just wasn't ready to hear it or receive it. And I think in my mind, it's all or nothing. instead of just saying, okay, well, maybe just for a little bit of time I can go somewhere else, and for a little bit of time I can be here. I don't think that it was ignored. It just, it truly was I wasn't ready to hear it, because I think parts of it were really working, and now parts of it really aren't working. So now I'm in a headspace to actually receive what you were saying,
Well,
not
but
necessarily.
let's parse what you just said, right? Parts of it are working, but now parts of it aren't working. Well, that was always true. Parts were working, like that's always true. If parts are working, parts aren't working. My question is like, so because here's I think, and I'm not going to speak for just men, but people in this position in a relationship, like I think a lot of us feel like now I'm held hostage, right? So it's like, well, okay, now you finally heard it, but it's been a problem for a long time. Does that make sense? So how do I like? Yes, you finally heard it and you're ready, but unless our whole relationship just works on what your timing and when you're ready, how could I have helped, or what is the way to push this forward in a different way? Like in other words, if the house is on fire and you're not ready to admit it, that doesn't mean the house isn't on fire. The house is still on fire. So as someone who doesn't want the house to burn, there's certain things we have to do. Now, again, in this case, it's about your emotions, so it's a little more complicated. But that's what I'm always like, do I force the issue or do I not? Because if I force it, because I see it, it's real. The house is on fire. I see what's happening and where we're headed. But then it doesn't seem to matter because one of us wants to be in denial. So I mean, right now we're talking about a thing where you're in denial, but there's certainly thousands of things where I've been in denial. Or we've flipped this many times, right? In fairness.
I think the answer to this is a check-in, and I think a check-in in a gentle way, not in a "I told you so" kind of way. Like, I told you this isn't working, and for us, what I have heard is, well, you sure are complaining a lot about this, so obviously it's not working. And so I think sometimes the check-in is not so gentle. I think you have been checking in. It's just, and again, I know that's like a, well, how do I know how to check in?
Well, that's the question. Like, I mean, I'm asking. Like, and I mean, really, truly, like, I'm not. I don't know. I mean, it's.
I
I
think
haven't
when you
meant to be
see, I
aggressive.
think
I just
when
don't
you
know how else
see,
to bring it up.
I think when you see they're overwhelmed, just say, "Hey, what's going on?" and ask that question, and not just assume you know what's going on. I just say, "Hey, I just want to check in with you. It seems like you're upset about something, or you're angry about something, or I feel like I'm disturbing you right now. Am I disturbing you right now?"
Okay, I could try that. We'll see what works, right? Because again, this is about getting out of right and wrong and into what works and doesn't work. I don't know that there's a magic solution that fixes this. I know that this scenario is repeated in relationship after relationship after relationship. Having space. We also kind of moved into, what happens when someone's having something negative happen. You see it. They don't either want to admit it or move on it. How do you figure that out? Well, that's part of the fun, right? That's nobody told you about this part of getting married when you got married, but welcome to the game, right? It's figuring that out. And I think the main thing is getting out of right and wrong into what's working, not working. And there is a healthy amount of space and a healthy amount of togetherness in every couple, right? Every muscle that you have contracts and expands, right? It needs to be under tension from time to time, and it needs to relax from time to time. Your muscles are like that. Your stomach, when you're digesting food, is moving every 20 seconds or so, moving the food around. Because if it just sat there in a pack, it would probably go rotten and you would get septic and all sorts of things. So every part of life has this kind of inhale, exhale, this tension and the release of tension. Having space in a couple allows for that tension, release of tension. And it's not about being like us or our conversation. It's about what works for your relationship. And are we thinking about this? Or is it all tension, or is it tension with release? And I think that can help us a ton. Whit, you want the last word on this?
I just think, for us and for you guys, if you're not creating that space inside of your relationship to step away from one another for a minute, to have something else to talk about, to keep bringing in fresh ideas into your relationship, then it's going to get stagnant. So I encourage you to create the space that you want and you need inside of your couple, and have that space together.